Hi, Hearties. So we are back to chat about season 11. I'm Chelsea from Puerto Rico,
Hey, Hearties, Jeanette from Michigan.
I'm Lori from Alabama.
and we are so excited to be joined today by the director of the last two episodes, episodes 5 and 6, Alyse Leite-Rogers. Welcome to Heart to Hearties.
Hey, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And just I feel like I won the golden ticket to be part of this little show with such a big heart. So it just thrills me to be asked to talk about my episodes. This is awesome.
Yay! Yeah, we are so happy to have you. And we have so much to talk about. But so before we start, tell us of like how you came to be a director for the show. Because you came in to direct When Calls the Heart for the first time in season 10, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So I did in 2022, I did a Christmas movie for Hallmark called Christmas Bedtime Stories with another wonderful Aaron. They've marketed the marketplace on that name with great human beings, Aaron Cahill and Charlie Weber. And it was for the same producers of When Calls the Heart. So I guess they liked what I did and I didn't screw up too badly. And they offered me, a block of When Calls on that same year. So last 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And so the Hardys, have so many questions. And we're going to start with Sherry Smith of Holden, Louisiana. And she wants you to walk us through the preparation stage, like from the time you get the script to actually directing, an episode. Like what steps do you take?
Yeah, that's a big question. So I'm going to try to put it down to Cole's notes. The first thing I do is I try to really honor the first time that I read the script because I'll never read it like that again. And by that, I mean, you'll always know what's coming and what happens. And so I really try to not get into my head about visualizing things and just really connect with what I'm feeling as I turn the page. Anything that jumps out at me, I just pay attention to. And then after you've got that first reading, you read it several more times, and I break it down so that I can track all the characters. They start their day here, they go there. Is that continuous? If we're looking outside of the saloon doors, should those people be across the street? Like all the mechanics of the actual story. And while you're doing that, you can't help to start see it in your head. The coverage, the close-ups, the momentous push-ins, things like that. But then as soon as I get through the absorbing of the full story and where everybody is in it, the next thing is to try to pull themes. And for me, it's really important. And for example, I don't know if many of you Hearties have noticed, but in the classroom, I always thematically put something on the board as a lesson plan that ties into the theme of the story. So in the Rosaleen episode, it was all about transformation, her going through this act of forgiveness. So I had metamorphosis up on the chalkboard, and I had, butterflies hanging that I shot through. It's very subtle. Most people won't pick that up, but I know that it's there, and it informs a lot of the choices I make in terms of framing to have a really clear vision of what the theme is and how I can adapt props or set deck or anything to help bridge that theme. The one that just aired on Sunday with Higgins on the board, when he comes into the classroom and she remembers that voice, there's that powerful shot of her face and you just see it come over her. Well, when you turn back, she was just writing poisonous plants on the board, and the word poison was behind her. So
a lot of Hearties picked up on that. They picked up on that.
Yeah. Oh,
really
yeah,
did.
they did.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Victory.
I think I might have tweeted about that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes me so thrilled. Because, sometimes you just kind of go, I don't know if this is a detail that will be caught, but it means a lot to me. It's just another layer of storytelling. So that's the fun part. When, and then at the very end, I'll just sum it up. Then you go to blocking, and I run all the scenes and say all the lines and figure out how best to shoot it when I'm there in that space. So I can be often found just staring at a wall for 20 minutes blankly, and someone, because I'm all cutting it in my head of what I need, and that's kind of in a nutshell, the process before
What's sort of the time frame on that? How early do you get? I think Neil talked to us a little bit about that, but how early do you get the script before you actually start shooting?
Not very early. Technically you get 13 days of prep because you get 13 days to shoot. So it's equal in terms of the prep. My family will tell you the second my inbox gets the scripts, they're like, see you in 6 weeks, because that's it. You can't turn it off because you're just always seeing it as it develops and grows. And yeah, it's wonderful. It's just the best job in the world. And I just absolutely love what I do, and especially doing it with such a collaborative, creative, group of people that are such wonderful human beings. I drive to work and I can't believe that this is my job. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, speaking of, before we kind of move into, we definitely want to dissect some of the episodes, but just your career in general, not just When Calls the Heart directing, but were you somebody that came into the industry and just kind of did a little bit of everything, or was directing always kind of your goal?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always wanted to be a director. I did musical theater and some acting in high school and out of high school. And then I went to university, studied film and television, majoring in directing.
Okay.
It's a very long time ago. Like my first show was 1989 as a production assistant.
Okay.
There were no women directors. So and that was in Toronto. I moved back to Vancouver, my hometown, and I started working as a production assistant, and then moved my way up as an assistant director, always with my eye on directing.
Okay.
But it took a long time. It was, I was a first AD for 23 years. And I would say 13 or 15 years, I had never come across a female director. It was an all-male world.
Yeah.
So I was very young at the time. So, I've always been, comfortable in the presence of men. And it would be me and 20 men out for lunch or on the tech survey or, but it's nice to see that change. Like sometimes I look around in the tent and there's just women in chairs and women in these positions. I'm like, we've come a long way. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You spent a long time chipping away at that.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Perseverance for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've always had my eye on it. I always knew that's where I wanted to be. I did a little bit of producing and production managing, but I found that I'd be in the office, doing all the paperwork that comes along with that, because I was good at it and organized. But I'd be looking at the culture going, oh, I wonder what they're going to do with that scene.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so it was just like, no, I got to stay the course and, do what I've always wanted to do. And it's paid off. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm already loving having a fresh face here because there's just so much to dive into with you. And it's really great to hear a little bit about your background. But because it's the first time you've been here, we didn't get to chat about season 10. So we did want to dive into some season 10. Last year, you directed a couple of the most memorable episodes of the season. Looks like you did Best Laid Plans, which was written by Elizabeth Stewart.
Yeah.
And then one of Derek's, What Is and What Never Should Be. And we're going to share a few of the screenshots for Hearties to kind of take a look at some of your scenes. One of the ones that we really loved, and I remember some Hearties talking about, was when the radio came to town. We got that great shot when they first revealed it, and we had, I think it was Mike and Ned and Fiona all leaning into the radio. Can you tell us a little bit about that one coming to be? And was it kind of everything you imagined, or did it?
Yes, it was. So we had construction build us a special box, and I like to test everything in advance. So actually the very first thing that we photographed was previous to that day was the test. And we found that the box didn't open, like it opened to the side. And I went, well, that's a problem, because then it's going to be a different kind of reveal. So when we tested it, it was me and Andrew Coppin, the DP and the focus puller, doing the look. We opened it and like, okay, that doesn't work. So we had to switch the hinge so that it was a complete drop down so that we see all three of their faces. I just wanted to be in there. I just wanted to be right in their faces to, even if you're suspending that reveal for 3 seconds, it's something, and that's what I wanted to do, heighten that moment. And it was just brilliant. They were all at the same time. It just, washed over them, that excitement. So it turned out really well. I was really, really happy with that. Yeah, I have to test everything for sure, because you never know. You don't want the surprise to come on set when something doesn't work. So,
yeah. And what better characters to do that scene with? Those are some of the funniest of the bunch. Like
Your facial expressions were like great.
yes, there's some really funny people on cast. They're really, really talented. Yeah, they have such a wonderful.
Yeah, so good. Speaking of Andrew Coppin, we were with the next question, we were talking about the shot for the antenna in the, I think it was, I don't know if it was the barn or the stable, but there was kind of some cool lighting there and shots through the shelves. So what were you looking to capture with that scene, kind of the vibe?
So we were looking, it was in the stables actually, and it actually was a storage room in existence there, that they had turned one of the stables into an actual storage room. So there's not a lot of parts of Jamestown that has not been shot. So let's just put it that way. So when I went to look at it, I thought, well, of course it's the real thing, but it isn't conducive for filming. It's too small. I'm going to be on their backs. And then they would have to turn and present what they're finding, which would break up the scene, because it was just about as much of them working together continuously. I didn't want to break that up with having them to turn to camera. And then somebody mentioned that the slats on that wall could come out. It kind of divided the stable. And I was like, what? So as soon as we removed some of the slats, I thought, here we go, it's perfect. And I'm obsessed with shooting through foreground and having those things be part of the storytelling. So it was a perfect opportunity to say, okay, we need, a shelf here, and I'll put the camera here. And it worked out beautifully because they were in frame the whole time. As you could see, they're working and communicating and talking, and we get to see what they're looking at. So it was just this sort of fluke that someone even mentioned that, because it looked like a solid wall to me. So sometimes those little surprises happen and you're like, that's it. We got it. Yeah,
it was such a different perspective for the viewer to have too. Like for me, like it caught my attention immediately, because it's like, oh, this is a different perspective that I haven't had before, like watching the show. And it's the same thing as, the previous scene, the radio reveal. That was another like perspective the viewer had that we hadn't like had before. So it really grabs the attention as well.
Oh, I'm so glad, because I like to sort of try to think outside the box a little bit. You got to stay in, you have to stay within the constraints of the show, the look of the show, but you still have the ability to play when it works. And I think it worked well in those two instances. So I was super happy about that.
Yeah, really fun. Well, I believe that same block was the block where we got where Rosaleen returned. Our Hearties team does just want to, before we go into these scenes, we did want to take a moment and just let Maisie Leite-Rogers know we're sending her lots of love. And the Hearties are always here to support her. So, but the whole storyline, everything about Rosaleen has been precious to the Hearties since we first saw her, Can you talk to us about, because it had been a while since she'd been on screen and acting as a director, what are some of the things that you might do to encourage her, make her comfortable? How does that go as a director?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because I feel regardless of someone's age as an actor, anytime they come into an existing show, it's really intimidating, because everyone has got their, their language, the way they communicate, their inside jokes, they're a family. So you are coming into that. There's a lot of pressure. Everyone is, oh, let's see what she brings or he brings. So I always reach out to the actors in advance. Whether it's a Zoom call or a phone call, something so that they know that they have some grounding in someone that should be me, so if they've got any questions, I say, reach out to me anytime, so that I start that dialogue in advance, so that when they arrive on set, they have a familiar face, someone that, we've had a conversation about things, so I can bring it up. How was your weekend? Did you enjoy that? Something that kind of helps them to relax. And I think the end of the day, I'm really aware of people's comfort levels, and particularly as you said, for a young actor and someone like Mamie, who there was a lot of pressure, of course, because everyone was so excited about this, and I was so honored to be the one that told that story. Love and support. Love. It's like, I love actors generally, but I go out of my way to, try to alleviate any fears that they have, tell them that they're doing wonderful, make sure that they're not feeling, and this goes for all actors actually, the pressures of set. And by that, it's, that we're behind the schedule. I never want them to feel that. I feel like it's my job to isolate them from that so that they can do their best work. And I think that if someone feels appreciated and loved, I think then they can flourish in their work. And that's part of my job, is to make sure that they feel that way. So, little things like, for example, we'll do the first take and I'll say, you nailed it. We got it. So let's just do a couple more and play. And all of a sudden,
Oh yeah.
the performance stress is just gone, because they go, oh, she was happy with that. We got it. Okay. And then they can relax a little bit. And then maybe something new comes or something different. And so it's not that it's a white lie, but it's just, to kind of help them just relax and get into it. And I find too, with younger people, I think it's maybe as a result of the culture of scrolling, that they see really fast.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh.
Yeah, so a lot of the young actors I've noticed in the last few years, they just speak quick. And it could be nerves, but it's also, I think, just the way they communicate now.
Yeah.
So I try to approach them and get them to slow down. I try to be the energy that they can absorb from, that they need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Calming presence. And so I think just that. I think in a long-winded answer, it's really just love and support.
Yeah.
They can do their best work.
You're building their confidence, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it showed with Mamie's performance. It just, I mean, you would have never known that she had been away from acting for so long, because she really, and she just, there was such an ease about her, and she just so meaningful with her words. It was really beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And and often, sometimes they'll miss a line or a word, or they forget, and it's like, it doesn't matter. It's all good. You're doing great. Let's just do it again. If you forget the line, it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of editing. You really try to alleviate so they don't get in their heads. That's what you don't want. You don't want an actor to start becoming self-aware. So anything I can do to make them feel free and good about themselves, their performance, it will come up. It will come up. And I think it did. She was great.
Yeah. One of the other scenes that she did with Henry, there was the scene where she came out of the library and was sort of taken aback when she ran into him on the street. And that's right on Main Street. So there's not a lot of things, the eye line's pretty much right there. So how, as a director, do you kind of time a scene like that for the two of them?
Okay, that is such a good question, and so smart, because it's tricky, because as you said, it's wide open. So sometimes the camera can help that, because the viewer accepts what the camera is showing them. And so for the library scene, it was timing, because she was stepping out of the library. So it was all about, her intention was to step out, and when one does that, you're going, straight in. Then he caught her off guard. So it was a timing thing. In the other one, I sat there going, how is she not going to see him walking down the street? Do they not bump into each other? Exactly what you're saying. So I used a horse and carriage that blocked the view, so that when the horse pulled out, then there was the reveal, and they were right there, and it made sense, and it was logical. And again, it was just a little trick that sort of helped the reveal, because it's always a problem there, because there's not a lot of places to hide. It's such a wide street.
It is. It is. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
One more on that. We loved the storyline so much. We just got to keep talking about it. But the scene, we want to talk about the stable scene with the two of them, because it was just such a pivotal, oh my goodness, it was just so great. The thing that struck us about it was the light. We noticed a lot about the lighting. There was sort of the slotted lighting on Henry. He was sort of standing back in the shadows, and then sort of the moment at the end where Rosaleen steps into the light kind of moment. It was such a cool contrast there. Can you talk about setting that one up?
Yeah, that was completely all designed and intentional. I had the construction department build slats to divide the barn. So the barn actually continued, and it was just a big open doorway. But I found some imagery that I loved, and I showed to Andrew, and I said, I want to have these sort of healing rays of light. I call them healing because I think they represent that in this scene for her and for forgiveness. And, and I wanted Martin to be in the shadows and then step forward and be bathed in that light of forgiveness, more for himself. I think for a person, if we hold hatred and anger within us, there's some darkness there. And I think forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves, not just the other person. So I wanted her to be bathed in that light in the open door, and that the shafts, kind of like these heavenly sort of shafts that came through. So I'm so glad that you caught that. But we had to fill the barn with atmospheric smoke from special effects.
Oh, okay.
So because you don't see the shafts of light unless you
The
have
light, that makes sense.
That's
Yeah,
right.
okay.
So
Yeah.
so which is why I had the slats, so we can pump smoke through them and put a big strong light on the other side, so you get the shafts. But the problem is with the open door, the smoke would just like walk away.
Right. Yeah.
Kept waiting for the smoke, and the poor guy with the smokers in the back, the levels were up. We go and roll before the smoke goes.
Well, it was definitely one of those scenes, because it was another one like Chelsea talked about, where just very different from what we've seen on the show. And so many Hearties noticed it, the difference in the lighting and so it was, yeah.
I'm so
Chef's
pleased.
kiss on that
I'm
one.
so pleased to hear that, because it just meant a lot to me, that scene. It was beautiful and profound in so many levels, and I wanted the atmosphere to enhance that and be part of it. And it just kind of adds a different layer of storytelling, but the motivation for all that light is what I was just sharing with you. So I'm glad it worked. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, continuing to talk about season 10, you got to shoot some choir scenes last year, which they're always comedic, given Rosemary's penchant for wanting everything to be absolutely perfect. So any fun little behind the scenes you can share with us about the choir?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. I was so nervous about this choir. We were in prep, and I'm like, okay, we need to get them rehearsing, because I thought they have to sound good at the end, especially because it's the moment when, when Martin and Rosaleen come into the church. Like, it has to sound beautiful. And I thought, you can't just throw a group of people together and expect it to sound great. So I kept pushing, for a rehearsal. So we got a choir master. We were already shooting. And of course, in the first scene, they have to sound, not very good. They have to sound terrible, right? Which is a comedy. So it was over lunch. They had a rehearsal, and someone came and called me, and they said, okay, they're ready for you to listen. And I came out to where the lunch tent is in the parking lot, and they were all gathered there, and they sang. And I was so blown away. It was so good. I was like, damn you, is there no end to your talent? It was
right. That's so true. They're so good.
I was flabbergasted. And then I realized, no, this is terrible. It doesn't work. You're supposed to be bad. This is and I said, okay, this is awesome for the ending, but terrible for the first scene. And it was actually tricky to get them to not sound in tune with beautiful harmony on pitch. So the choir master had to literally, even when we were shooting, kind of give instruction with tone for them to be off key a little bit, because they were that good. I mean, they could have taken the show on the road. It was beautiful.
Wow.
So that was a really good surprise. I was like, okay, no more worries about the choir.
Yeah.
Nailed it. And then kind of angry that they could be so bloody talented. I kind of get it.
We are blessed with such a talented cast. We really are.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, I mean, all these wonderful things that we're finding out from you.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, so that's my little choir thing. It just put all my fears to bed. And it was. Yeah.
So We gather from Joannah Newmarch when she was on Heart to Heart Hearties earlier this season that she spent some time as your assistant during the filming of season 11. Tell us about working with Joannah.
Oh my God, I love her. First of all, she was not my assistant, although she did get me coffee and things from craft service. God bless her, because she has a heart the size of the sun. But she was more what's called a shadow, or I like to call a director observer. So she was observing me. And it was lovely to have her in the tent. It's, like it became our little sacred space. And by the tent, I mean, they put up a tent to keep the glare from the monitors so that you can see the images without reflections and such. And really who sits in there are the producers and the script supervisor and myself. So it's a sacred little space, and it's a wonderful place to kind of just go and collect your thoughts for a moment because it's quiet. And it was wonderful to have her there because I can, throw ideas off her, say, should I do this or this? And I just respect her so much, and she's got such wisdom and such a calm presence. I just loved having Joannah around. Like, yeah, and as an artist too, she is just so talented. I hope to see more of her next year. And Loretta, the scenes with them together, she has such great comedic timing. She is so funny. And she also just does drama so well. Again, the cast have such a wonderful range on this show between comedy and drama. And it's so fun to be able to explore that with them. But I loved having Joannah around all the time. She's just this beautiful human being that I'm sure you know because you've spoken to her and met her. So
yes,
yeah.
I'm glad y'all got to have that experience. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we're gonna switch gears just a little bit here. Episode 8 of season 10, we're still back in season 10, contained that wonderful babysitting snafu and the long talk between Elizabeth and Nathan after Allie fell asleep on the couch. Kevin McGarry shared that you really gave the actors a lot of time and space to draw out that scene. So we have actually the Hearties have coined that scene the apple juice scene. And Brian Shively of Arizona and Katherine Jensen of Minnesota want to hear more about your approach to that scene.
Here's my overall philosophy. The lighting can be beautiful, the set deck, the costumes, but the reason we're all there is for the story and the actors. And I try to preserve that as much as possible. And I feel that's the most important part of my job. And when it comes to scenes like that, I really want the actors to feel that they're not rushed, that they have time to explore. And for me, I love the moments of silence, the moments in between the words, that says so much. So I always encourage them to take their time, because we can always pace it up in the editing room and take the air out of it, but you can't add it in. And I think, you can't add that pause, that look, and there was so much beautiful connection between them. And I remember just saying to him, just like, take your time. Because he was like, well, I feel like, I was like, yeah, just be there, be in it. Because it was such a deep connection between them. They're talking about parenting. He was, really listening to her. And then they were skirting around this other issue. And it was just, there was it was beautiful. So I guess for me, it's just letting them know it's okay to take that time and be in it and be fully present. And I think it's what helps with performance. I try to keep the set quiet for those kinds of scenes. I think they should walk into, again, a room that parlays the intent or the energy of the scene. So I try to keep everybody quiet when they're coming in, just to sort of really be in it, just to help them really be in it. They're all such wonderful, talented actors. So, to be able to watch, and I always think I'm the first audience. That's what I am. I'm at the monitors and I'm the audience. So I'm always looking, is it clear? Am I experiencing what I'm supposed to be experiencing without knowing the rest of the story? So if I ever have notes for them, these characters, these actors all know these characters better than I do. It's more a question, I phrase it in a question, in terms of, again, I come back to the audience. Can you show the audience a little bit more about what you're feeling? I'm not sure the audience understand. It's always from that place, as opposed to a place of character, if that makes sense.
Both of them commented about how they really appreciated that they both referenced your work and saying that they appreciated that you gave them that time and space to breathe and through that scene. So I think that speaks volumes that they both really appreciated it, and it worked, and the scene worked so well.
Yeah, I think I do. I just think that's what we're all there for, is performance and the actors. And, set can be a pretty crazy place sometimes. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of equipment and people and talking and radios and everything. So I just feel like you have to have that sort of sanctimonious space that they can come into and do their best work. So just try to support them in that.
Yeah. Really cool. So now let's move to season 11, which you directed the two most recent episodes. So we have Stronger Together, which was written by Paul Rutford, as well as Believe, which was written by Dana Brower and Lindsay Sturman. So we have Heather Hood of Minneapolis, and she shares that in episode 5, she loved the way the scene with Henry and Joseph, like on the porch of the cafe, was filmed. Like the perspective was like over their shoulders. So tell us about shooting with the two of them, and what was your intent of like filming from that angle?
Yeah, those are called backovers, or sometimes called French overs. And typically you do that. They came out of shooting people in cars, really, because the operator can be in the back seat, because it's very hard to put a camera in the front seat, obviously. So that's where they started. And it's also very common when people are sitting on a bench. You see that in movies when there's a beautiful vista. If they're looking out at a view, you tend to shoot that because you've got that tableau behind them. In this case, it wasn't so much about the tableau, because across the street was a street that we know so well, but I just felt there's this comfort in men when they talk to one another, have a heart to heart. A lot of times men are shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
I live in a house of 4 men. I have 3 sons and a husband, and men are most comfortable when they're not eye to eye. Not that there's any discomfort between these old friends, because there definitely has this deep relationship and respect for one another. But there was something beautiful about them just sitting shoulder to shoulder. And it reminded me of men sitting at a bar or watching a game or playing sports. It's how they best communicate. So that's kind of where it came from, is just going, that's a much more interesting way of shooting that. The intimacy, that you don't have to have people sitting, across from each other, and looking at each other to know that they're having this intimate conversation. It also makes the viewer feel that they're kind of privy to a very private conversation.
Right, yeah.
Almost like they're sneaking over their shoulder.
Yeah, it's like we were sitting there,
Right
just
there,
at the table
yeah.
behind them, listening in.
Exactly. So, and that again is just another, layer that I just want to bring attention to, their intimacy. These two men that have such a deep, beautiful friendship. So as a viewer, you just feel like you're almost disturbing them, like you're listening in on this wonderful private conversation. So that's what I tried to convey with shooting it that way.
A couple of parties commented about Molly sitting right there kind of so closely. Was there sort of any like subtle purpose about having her sit there while they were having this heart to heart, or?
No, she was scripted as reading in the cafe. So there was just that kind of like, look that she shares with Martin. And again, it kind of just shows that the town is so connected and everyone knows each other and is familiar, cordial, warm up, Gowan's character a little bit. And although he's, come leaps and bounds, obviously, in his growth. But no, there was no intention really to have her there that close. And, and I think the conversation was private enough. And in the backovers, it would help that too, that she was part of that. She wasn't in their background really, except for the big wide shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved hearing your perspective on that because that's really cool. To like that we had that sneak peek into that conversation. That was really cool. So we have a comment from a Heartie, Peggy Williams, and she says that Lucas has always been like cool under pressure, logical, in control. But the flashback scene that we saw, showed like how, Lucas is troubled not only by the memories that are, starting to come back, but his like inability to keep them from happening. So, which was a great scene, the way that it was shot, and then the edits come in, and it was amazing. That scene was so great. So tell us what you were trying to convey in that moment.
Yeah, because it was tricky because so much of it is internal, right? So how do you show the audience, what someone is, internalizing? And it would be too, over dramatized if he, gripped something or lost his balance. It wasn't, anything like that. So that's when the camera can be of such great use. And you said, okay, I'm going to use the camera to tell that story, what's happening to him internally. So we don't ever do handheld on the show. So the camera's usually in studio mode on a dolly for the most part, or Steadicam, but we actually put the camera in handheld mode and Dutched it, which means that, we had these kind of angles that were askew to show that he was discombobulated. And then I played with focus going in and out of focus on his face because I think he was confused and feeling overwhelmed. So I just used the camera and the lens and we shot slow motion so that I could play with ramping. So some of it was slow and then we'd go to real time, and just to sort of convey the, the turmoil that was going on inside of him. So, in my cut, in my director's cut, I played a little bit more with the focus, I think, than what ended up in the cut. I think it's still there, all the Dutch angles and the cutting style and stuff. But yeah, it was just a way to convey interior what was happening with Lucas, and he did such a great job too.
Yeah,
I keep saying it over and over, but it is so cool how you do this and how this comes out of your brain.
Oh.
You just have an amazing brain for a director to be able to think of all these cool things. I'm very impressed. I feel like I'm learning so much because I'm a teacher. I have no idea what directors do. So this is amazing. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I love that scene. I have rewatched that scene because it's just so very different for When Calls the Heart.
So good. So good.
And I had to tell everybody, I said, okay, I'm going to do something a little crazy here. I know it's not our show, but I want to go handheld. I checked it before doing it because it could have been the last time I was on the show. So I just wanted to make sure everybody, sold off on that idea because like I said, handheld or playing with folk, all those things are not typically the show, but it called for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it makes sense for the moment, and it looked really great, and also like they were like those black and white, yeah, kind of like flashback moments. So was that edited in of like an original filming of the shooting, or was it like recreating that again?
No, so Neil Fernley shot all of that whole sequence, all the original. I mean, I've stopped myself here because I don't know what else has been aired yet. Okay, so all the stuff that I used was shot in Neil Fernley's first block. So the only thing that wasn't that I wanted to do was I wanted something to trigger him again. Like at first he got the first trigger when he looked at the photograph. And then when they leave, I used the light. I had them put a standing light in the office so that when he looked at them, I used that to cut to the light of the car coming on.
Yeah.
So I wanted him to be triggered by, the environment or sound. So we shot the night that we shot the last scene of Nathan and Elizabeth in the doorway. It was at night. We had a B camera splinter off to the side with the car shooting the light coming on, and somebody with a little Hudson sprayer making rain on top of the off of the light. So that was the only thing I recreated, was just that little moment, so that I can use it as a flash for him, a trigger.
Wow, really cool. That's so awesome. It was a really great scene in general. So And also we have to talk about Maisie Hickam. So all the scenes with Maisie were really just hilarious. So the timing in the negotiation scenes, we got the laughs, and as well as, the physical comedy that Samantha Ferris like really performed brilliantly in the spa, or like, in those meeting scenes. So what were the keys for you in directing these moments?
I let her go. I just had to bring it on. She was amazing. It was all there. I really would just say like, oh, don't forget you're saying this line to so and so, or like really I would just give her sort of those notes, because the humor, the timing, her facial expressions, I mean, I don't even need to comment because you saw it. She's brilliant. The only thing I did is I thought, well, she's the anchor. So this is a woman that sits at the head of the table. So when I go to block, like I was saying, I'm there by myself, and I do all the lines, and I like who's saying, who's talking to who's looking at who, and I tried her brother sitting in different places, so I move everybody around and I change seats and stuff, but I always thought she would be at the head of the table. It's just who she was. She commands a room when she walks in, and everybody else would fit into her space because she takes the air out of a room. So that's how I came to the blocking, is like, where would everybody sit? And for the looks. And then as it developed, and in that final scene, the men were all seated comfortably on the desk and standing up, and it was her against them. So there was definitely, they were not at the table for a reason. I blocked it that way because there was a shift in power, even though she came to it late in the scene. But she was just brilliant, Samantha. So very, very little directing in terms of my thing. It was just more like the mechanics of the blocking.
What was cool was she would walk into that room. She walked in that room, woman in charge, clearly. And then she walked out. She was almost like physically stuttering with her body. It was so good.
Right? Almost like, I'm going to say something. No, I'm not. I have another thought. No, I'm not going to say that. She was just like, you could see the wheel thing.
Yeah, completely different. It was just amazing to see the
Well, and what a find, because we learned a couple seasons back, I think, about Mike having 5 sisters, which was like brand new information for the Hearties. So all of us have been speculating for years about who's going to be cast as his sister. So it was so fun to finally meet one of them.
Yeah. And I loved that, Ben played, we talked about this of, it was still his sister, and there was no, he had care for her. He wasn't vengeful. When he was like, Maisie, I tried to tell you, he was earnest in that. He was just like, this is who she is. And he tried several times in that scene, and she kept shutting him down. So that was
and then he would still revert to kind of like little kid sounding moments when he's like, Maisie, like and never calling
like, oh
yeah, exactly. So great.
And you go,
he loves his sister.
Little kids. Yeah,
exactly.
He loves his sister, but she drives him crazy.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that family at times?
Yes.
So I loved their relationship, and
it was so great. For me personally, I was a bit obsessed with the shots of those handsome Hope Valley men that we have in the there were, not gonna lie, there were a couple great shots, the 3 of them sitting there kind of stumped about what to do, and the great shot of Gowan just in his book at the end of the bar. And then, like you just referenced, the one where the 3 of them are standing like leaning on the credenza kind of thing. I actually tweeted that one, and Chris responded that album forthcoming, like they kind of look like an album cover that they're
complete album cover. That's so funny. So true. And
the men is that shooting those handsome men. Tell us more.
It's so fun. You can, of course it's so fun. And the scene at the bar too, to me, it was like they were so sad over their beer, right? They were just so despondent. They were like, and it was just so sweet because, they were all on the same page, having the same experience. There was a take that they did, which was so funny. They kind of surprised me, where they all just like sighed and then drank their beer at the same time. It didn't make it into the cut, but they kind of orchestrated that for me. And I had such a chuckle. I went, okay, I love it. That's so funny. It's not the kind of comedy that lives in rom-coms, but it was really cute that they kind of planned this little thing for me. But no, it was really great. And then we revealed, of course, Gowan. And, we didn't want him to be part of the scene off the top. So it was kind of a surprise that he was there. But no, the guys just have such a wonderful chemistry and such a respect for each other, so no one's trying to, up them in a scene or steal the line. Like they're just such a wonderful collective. And it comes across, I think, in all the scenes, their comfort with each other. And they're just all such pros. And yes, is it hard to go to work with handsome men? Of course it is. I mean, someone's got to do it.
Such a tough job. Oh, too funny. And then in that episode, we have to talk about that beautiful, beautiful scene that took our breath away of Mike and May, with May preparing him the dinner. I mean, visually, we got to see so much of her culture with the lanterns. For this one, we have a hearty question. Mary Ellen Moore of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, wants to know where it was filmed. I also found myself wondering that. And to hear about how you got a sense of what it might look like with all of the lantern light, the Chinese screen, and like the gorgeous fabric Amanda was wearing as May. There were just so many elements to it that were just brought it all together. Yeah.
Well, the first part is we filmed it in the orchard, which is right behind the cafe. So there was a little scene that didn't make it into the cut where Hickam actually walks past the cafe to the entrance, so that we just got some geography to where it was.
Okay.
And then he kind of braces himself and then comes through the curtain. That part didn't make it in just because of timing. We have to, as you know, deliver a certain time, so things get trimmed. So that got taken away. Because it's night, it's hard to see where we were, of course, right? With the lanterns, I wanted it to be washed in something warm, and the red and the gold. So, of course, I asked for the lanterns to be tested. I grab imagery and I share them with the set decorator, our production designer. And Sarah sent me a picture that there was the structure, the fan, the room divider. It was actually in her office. And she said, would this work? And I'm like, perfect. So we use that. And then when I go to block, they give me a floor plan of the set, of the table. I wanted to make sure that it was everything that she would have gotten from the cafe. So the china we used from the cafe, the table, the chairs, so that it didn't seem like, where did all this stuff come from? That it was that she kind of, raised the level, of course, a bit on the table setting, but it was all stuff that she borrowed and was accessible to her because the cafe was right there. But in terms of the lighting, so I do a schematic. And then when I was there blocking, it was like, ooh, what's going to be behind them in their close-ups? Because so much of the show lives in here, right? So then I would go back to the art department and say, I need something with, on a stand with lanterns. And on Hickam's side, we put candles all over the fence so that there was light behind him. So it kind of evolves, if that makes any sense. But it starts with like imagery and me sharing it with the departments. And then they come and they go, well, what about this? Or we found this. And I get so excited when people are as excited about it as I am. And, they just come to the table with great ideas. It's so collaborative, you need a whole team to be able to pull it together. The props, Arlene, the props department was completely on top of it with the plates and the food. And it just, So all those pieces kind of just came together, but absolutely everything I had seen in advance.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm just neurotic that way.
What a great example of the teamwork on that one. Then Hearties, we're wondering about the chopsticks. Was that written in, or was that a Ben Rosenbaum improv
so it's
there?
a combo.
Oh, great.
Oh, good. In that he takes out the chopsticks and grabs the dumpling. But Ben said to me, I've been practicing, want to see this? And he picks up the fork and he moves it. And I'm like, that's amazing. But should I do that? I said, sure. We were just talking about it. So we roll. I don't know how many takes we did. That fork, he dropped the fork. Nothing. It was hilarious. It was like, what happened? It was like, it was so easy. It was like this party trick that he'll learn. But he finally did get it, where he picked up the fork and moved it out of the way because he was going to use chopstick. But it was very funny. I think we all clapped when he finally did it because it was
Yeah.
but
Good.
God bless him, like,
Blooper reel
yes,
for that.
yes,
Yes, yes.
yeah. But I just love that he came with this little, party trick and
Yeah.
just, again, it just something that the actors bring that just elevates the scene and makes it better, makes it funnier,
Yeah.
Yeah. Love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So good. So pivoting a little bit in that same episode, we had that epic moment between Elizabeth and Nathan, where they stepped into the little alcove there. We have a Hardy question on this. I kind of love this that she
I know.
timed out this scenario. So Kelly Kinsley Dinitz of Elk Grove, Illinois. I hope I pronounced your name right. She counted the lengthy pause that happened when Nathan asks after he says the big line, "Are we just friends?" And she said it was a full 14 seconds. That was really surprising to me. And it was so long. Some of us even caught and we wondered if there was a little bit of slow-mo happening there. Can you talk to us about, that's one of those, I think you use the term like suspended time
Yes.
or something like that. So talk to us about
Yes.
that. Like, and what's the purpose of giving that time? And
Yeah, so it was slow-mo. We went
Okay.
after the question, we ramped to slow motion. I guess I wanted the viewer two things. One is I wanted to feel like it was just them in the world and everything else fell away. Nothing else mattered. Everything just stopped. And it was just focus on the two of them looking at each other. And I'm going to be honest, I also wanted the potential. Are they going to kiss? Is that coming? The way that he looks at her, there was so much. Again, I think there's so much in silence. It's not always words that say and speak to us. And that's what I loved about that moment, that you see it just in their faces. And in the slow motion, it helps to capture that. You could see that she had so much she wanted to say. And the vulnerability, is it now? Is he feeling the same thing? Is it safe? Do I tell him how I feel? He's thinking the same thing. You're wondering, is this the moment? And then it just gets broken by, of course, when Gowan steps up. So what was surprising to me is that was in my cut. When I do the director's cut and I present it, I thought, oh, they're going to trim that. And they didn't. They left all 14 seconds because that's what I wanted. I wanted that moment to just linger and for us to be still with them.
Yeah.
Because in that stillness, you feel so much more, I think. And I think that's what it was, is just being with them. And they were so connected and so grounded and just looking at each other. Right. And did you feel like they might kiss the beginning of that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't
Yeah,
hear
sure.
the collective Hardy screams when Gowan walked up.
Some Hardies were talking about lip steering going on and all that.
Yes, there was some lip staring. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think you almost found yourself holding your breath, like in
It's
that,
like getting
what's
closer to
gonna
the
happen?
TV, like
Yeah, leaning into the
Leaning
TV.
in.
That's
Yes.
music to my ears. That's exactly what the intention was, is to feel this suspended time, and it's just these two people and them looking at each other and the depths of what that meant.
And those shots were, so close up on their faces, so you just
their
felt
expression.
every emotion, like you said. It's
yeah, with drama, the closer you go, the more intense, but it has to be saved. Right? If you did all the scenes with close-ups, then you don't
right.
You know what I mean? So they earned that moment to be right in here, and the viewer too. It says something different than being in your traditional medium close-ups. When you're in here, you're paying attention. It's the details of everything. You're just seeing it in the eyes. So
For that storyline, it felt like a moment, one of the first, because this season in general, there's sort of been some awkwardness, and like it felt like they kind of took a couple steps back because they know how they both feel and it's clear they both want to go there, but they just haven't had any real conversations yet. And that moment was one of the first big, like, he just laid it out there. I mean, that was a big move for him to say.
It was.
Yeah. So
yeah. And even though, he pulled her into a more private place, so it wasn't in the middle of the street. So I tried to show that he was you know, putting them in an environment that was a little bit safer and more private. But no, he was going out on a limb there for sure. And he was, you know, kind of vulnerable and saying, this is how I feel. And then it just, you know, then that moment slips away. And I think for the viewer, you're like, well, wait.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Come back. Well, you know, of course we get that again at the end. So
Well, and those are
Yeah.
those are the kind of scenes too. After you see them on like air, it's hard. I couldn't even picture it anywhere else or any other way. Like there's certain scenes like that after they happen, you're like, that's, I mean, it's you can't picture it anywhere else. It was just a really
oh,
cool.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Instant classic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where it was supposed to be.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Right
Awesome.
next to the old fruit stand and the
Yeah. With no one buying flowers at that exact
Who knew?
moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're going to stick with the emotion, but a little bit different kind. We have to talk about that man, Higgins. So Sunday's episode and storyline with Higgins brought us some of the most stirring performances of the season. Erin Krakow, she was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just incredible. What strikes you about those scenes, directing Erin first with Pascal at night at Elizabeth's house, and then with Kevin, with Nathan in the schoolhouse, those powerful scenes?
They were, boy, Erin is just, I don't even have words. I don't know where to begin. Her performance is so layered because there's so much complexity to the situation, which she of course downloads to Rosemary, and all aspects of her performance tied into that conversation with Rosemary. Am I reading too much into it? Is it me? The anger, the, you know, the uncertainty, the how to navigate, you know. And when I shot the scenes with James, who plays Higgins, I tried to shoot his coverage first because that would inform Erin's reactions. And the same thing, we had a lot of discussions about the manipulation that occurs in, you know, these kinds of men, that they don't come in, you know, twirling their mustache and they're just evil all the time. It wouldn't work. They're master manipulators at, you know, making the person self-doubt, being charming, being kind, and, you know, warm, where it leaves the victim very confused. And it was exactly the notes that he plays. So we spent a lot of time on those scenes rehearsing, talking about, you know, where to go so that the scenes didn't all feel the same, because there's quite a few where he confronts her, he comes back to the school several times, schoolhouse. So they had to be nuanced and feel different. I mean, Erin's performance, she's just a powerhouse. First of all, as a number one, which holds so much responsibility, she sets the tone for that show. She's professional. She's a kind, loving human being. She is so good at what she does. And she just brought her A++ game to that episode. And to have the gift of being able to be at the monitor and, like I said, be the first audience. I mean, sometimes I couldn't even say cut because I had such a knot in my throat. It just brought tears to my eyes. And I would just hold her hands and say, I don't know what to tell you. It was beyond beautiful. Like, it was just so touching. And then I get to experience that all over again in the editing room and trying to pick the best take. I mean, it was torture because they were all nuanced and beautiful and deep and moving. And yeah, there's just so much going on before she tries to be strong for herself, for Anna, I mean, there was just so much there. So, and the scene with Pascal was just also, Pascal and Kevin, they just are so good at listening. You know, there's so much when they just let her be and let her talk and gave her that space to feel safe. You know, I love that relationship that they have as these two, you know, almost like sisters, that they're so close. She sees her light on, and there's not a lot of words, but you get this overall feeling in that scene that there is nothing but compassion and support between these two women. And it was important that for me and for Erin and Kevin, we talked about that it wasn't Nathan who was fixing it or coming up with the idea, that it had to be her. He just supported her and made her believe in herself. And that was all. She had to be the one to take the matter into her own hands and find the strength. And she got that from both those relationships, both those people equally. So I loved directing those scenes. It's the kind of work where you drive home at the end of the day and you're just like, wow, it just stays with you. It just, yeah, it holds a special place in my heart, those scenes and that episode. Yeah.
And to me, those characters were modeling what any victim in that scenario would want from their friends and their people who care about them. I think it's a really good tool for saying this is, you just listen and you believe them and you are there for them. And it was almost like they're someone we can learn from. Like, this is how you support people in this situation.
Yes, that's
and
exactly
from all of them. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Rosemary had some suggestions, but she never was overpowering. She was just wanting to help her friend. But more than anything, she listened to her. She really listened and took in what she was saying. Yeah, and just such a beautiful, there's just such beautiful poetry between them, these two women.
You were mentioning how like Higgins, comes a few times to the schoolhouse, and I just had a question about this. So his close-ups whenever, I think it's like the second time he comes to the schoolhouse, but his close-ups whenever he's closest to her, in like close to her desk, it seemed to be like shot from below. So was it trying to show him like imposing like his authority, or like to intimidate her, like showing him taking the shot like from below?
Yes, yeah. So I was eye level in her coverage, and with him, I put the camera lower so that he was more impeding, so that he was towering over her, even though physically he wasn't, complete. But the camera angle, just being slightly lower, gives him that position of power. And also in the blocking, the fact that he was coming towards her and she was moving, and then she went behind the safety of her desk. It's all him predatory, like entering into her space and coming into her space. And then we get into that low angle close up, and even in the bar when he whispers to her, it was slightly lower angle there, and it just a subtle, because, he's very much aware that eyes could be on him. So he was, I kept saying, remember, it's all subtle. It's all subtle. And he did it beautifully. He did such a good job. Because it's the smallest things that we do with our bodies that forecasts a lot, and then the help of the camera then can accentuate that for the audience. And it's amazing that you can articulate that. Some people don't even, they just might get a feeling from it without really realizing what it is that made them feel that. But that was the intention. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you pulled it off with Higgins, because I think I saw a couple of tweets about they wanted Elizabeth to throw that ball at him. So you definitely got it, that where Hearties were definitely feeling that this is a really bad guy.
There was a record number of get out gifts, like the different versions of like, get out of town. Just leave.
Oh, yes.
Hearties made a lot of use of those. Just
leave. Hilarious.
Yes, they did. They really did.
Yeah.
So
no, I was so honored to be the one to tell that story. I was just so pleased. And being a woman in the early 90s in this industry, it was not completely unfamiliar ground. So I had that to be able to share with Erin that we talked about. And it just came off really well. Really helpful.
There were a lot of Hearties that tweeted that they've experienced it and they can relate too. So a really meaningful episode for many.
Yes, it was. So getting to that, towards the end of the episode, there's so many delicate dynamics going on right here. Elizabeth clearly needed to be the one to confront Higgins as he was about to leave town. But we noticed there was that little sliver of red surge as the taxi was pulling away. And then that incredible shot of Nathan standing across the street, just watching. Melissa Atwood of Nova Scotia particularly loved that and wondered, what were you conveying there?
Again, I love that people notice all these details. I wanted to show the audience that he was bearing witness to her strength, that he was present. And I thought, if we just cut to him, there could be the chance that people thought that maybe he just walked up and just didn't see the whole thing. So by having that over the shoulder, that kind of like, sometimes we call it a dirty over because it's just a sliver.
Mhm.
You know, it's unconventional that usually you do that after you've seen the person. You know what I mean? But I kind of did it in the other order.
Mhm.
So, because we don't see him until we cut back to her POV of him. So it is a bit unconventional to do that first. But I just wanted to have him tied in to witnessing her strength and being there. And yeah, having him connected to that he was in a little small way a part of that for her, and that he was proud of her. And then when you cut back to him, you understand he was there the whole time watching. So it was, yeah.
And then continuing a little bit further to right at the end of that episode, that brings us to two important row house porch scenes that you directed. The beautiful moment in which Elizabeth lay her head on Nathan's shoulder. Michelle Plott of Baltimore said she melted over this season and wondered where you drew inspiration to shoot it from the inside looking at the moon.
So, okay. So I wanted, again, I come back to the feeling and the heart of the scene. And for me, it was intimacy and connection and quiet. So I felt I wanted the moon because I just didn't, and we don't do a lot of nights on the show, you may notice. It just is more costly, more labor intensive. So usually in the summer months, it doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock. So we play a lot of night as evening. But I really fought for this to be night because I wanted them to be washed in moonlight. And then again, the symbolism of the moon, you know, rebirth, the opportunity to shed yesterday and new beginnings. So I thought it was really important and symbolic for that to be in the shot. And I just felt being on their backs, I almost again felt like I was in the house and watching this beautiful, intimate moment, but you don't want to kind of come too close to them. You just want to see it from afar and be witness to it. And yeah, I don't know, it just came into my head and I kept saying, I have to shoot this in the door frame, you know, and just the laying of her head on him, there's so much trust there, so much friendship. And it was just such a sweet, intimate moment. And then I just wanted to leave them and have the camera pull back and feel the possibility of the moon, the full moon on them. Yeah. So I just had that image, and then I was like a dog with a bone. It's like, no, it has to be night. No, and of course it was a Vis Effect moon that we put in. And a couple of days before, we actually were filming out there other scenes. And on the way home, there was a full moon. And it was just like, yes, we got to do that. I'm going to stick to my guns about this full moon. And I'm glad I did, because it just gave us that breath, you know, that we needed at the end of the heavy episode.
And you talk about the quiet moments. Sometimes there's so much conveyed in those quiet moments.
Yeah, there were so many details in that scene too. Like also like how it looked, but also like even like Nathan's sigh, like whenever she, you know, puts her head on his shoulder, like he sighs, and then that's shot like from inside the house. So yeah, so many details.
There was still some
meant so much, right? The sigh was like this comfort
Yeah.
that he was home, and this is where he belonged, right there and nowhere else. And yeah, so I loved his sigh. It was yeah, really powerful.
And there was still a little bit of playfulness between them too, like when she gave him the shoulder and the, you know, just asking him to sit there. She just kind of gives him a nod, and lots of little subtle things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, another row house porch moment we have to talk about is episode 5. Caroline Walsh of South Bend, Indiana wants to know about the end of episode 5, when Elizabeth approaches and delivers that mic drop moment. Friends don't look at each other like this. Why did you elect to keep Kevin sitting at that moment?
So I wanted the moment to be Elizabeth's moment. So if he got up, then first of all, he would be on the stoop. He would be taller than her and bigger than her in the frame. He'd have to step down. And then for her to walk away then you would feel like he would say, wait, or there would be more to come. I really wanted him to be, you know, have his socks blown off, which he was, like the shock of it. You don't move. when someone does something or you see something that you witness that is shocking, it takes a moment to gather yourself. If he stood up, I just feel that it would just beget more energy that he would say something or go after her or something. And I really wanted it to be her moment, because she turns and she's got that playful look where she knows what she just did. She left him with that little nugget and knows there's more to come, and enjoyed not playing with him, but kind of like, I did this, I got it off my chest, I've left him with that. And she walks away. And I love that we just kind of move in on him, and he's really taking in what she said. And I think if he got up, it would be different. It would be have a different energy.
Yeah. And they probably do, because they're trying to figure out that delicate dance of what are we feeling? What are you feeling? What am I? They have that moment to take it all in.
Yeah, I really
enjoy it. Enjoy that moment.
Yeah, which we did with that push. And he was like, did I just hear what I think I heard?
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
and she was like, did I really just say that? Yeah, I did. Like, you know,
exactly. She's like, I did it. She walked away and she was like proud of herself. It was this,
exactly.
you know, like, I did it. I got it off my chest, and I've left him with that. And I just think if he stood up, I don't know, it would be a different scene.
So fans would have been yelling at him, going, "Go after her! What are you doing?"
Right? Why is he just standing there? Why is it? You know, it feels like he would then be in a position to move, and I wanted him to be floored, literally.
Yeah. And,
you know, to stay where he was and let it sink in, and so that was the choice behind that, having him seated.
So interesting. I tell you what, I feel like we could. I could listen to you for like the rest of the night. This has all been so interesting. We want to just say a giant thank you. I mean, it's so great to have a new face on Heart to Hearties. And we just really appreciate you taking the time, and so much great insight. I really hope Hearties take the time to watch this one, because I was hanging on your every word.
You know what it's done for me, and I have to say thank you, is I'm so excited to get back to there this year and do my block, because I know that it all matters. You know, and I know anyways for me, but now to know that everyone is paying attention to the details, I get super juiced up on being able to, you know, do those things, knowing that it's going to make a difference and that you're paying attention. So thank you very much.
Yes, I love that. I totally just got goosebumps with you saying that. That's amazing. And so we do hope we see some of your work in season 12, and it sounds like we will. So that's good news for us Hearties.
Me too.
So thank you, Hearties, for being here and for showing up week after week on those Sundays at 9/8 Central. We love seeing you. We are coming up on another new episode this Sunday. I think we're at 7 now, right, guys? I think.
Second half of the season.
I know, we're into the second half.
It's got to slow down.
I know, it's flying by, but so great. So, and as always, you can subscribe to our channel. That way you'll get notified when we drop something new. We have more guests coming and lined up already, and people asking about sitting down with us. So we hope you'll tune in. And until then, we will see you Sunday. Thanks for being here for another Heart to Hearties. Bye, Hearties.
Bye.